Has anyone written any questions? Does anyone want to start? Actually, I want to start. Sorry, I got the mic. So the $1 million question, right? Which I always ask every speaker, and Tanguy's been here a couple of times. How do we scale this, right? What you guys are doing is absolutely incredible and inspiring to all of us. How do we get more people around the world doing what you're doing? I don't mean scaling just your own companies, but scaling what you're doing, getting the knowledge out there, getting more people to be aware, getting more people to do what you're doing. Likely, there are other people around the world doing similar things to what you're doing, right? But how do we get all the farms in the world, or at least all the small farms in the world, to be chemical free? And what are some of the challenges around that? So the question is for both of you guys. You may start as you started the presentation, and your voice is still fresh. So thank you.
All right, thank you. There's something that we've learned with by working with farmers for so many years, is that farmers are very quick to react. I'd say they're opportunistic, but in the good sense of the term. So, for example, if you create a larger, stable, well-paying market for food that is, regeneratively grown, you create a huge incentive for farmers to transition. And if there are organizations who are there to support in providing knowledge, then there can be a very quick shift. You start your presentation by saying every job is a climate job. I'd like to say every dollar is a climate dollar. It goes down to what do we all eat? What do we, which system are we contributing to when we buy food? It's a very fundamental choice. So I would say, step one, think about what is your impact. Which system are you supporting by the way that you eat? And going back to this idea about creating a market, there's a study that was done in Indonesia for rice farmers. So there's a lot of organizations who provide training for farmers to help them switch to organic farming. And what the study showed is that on average, farmers who transition from conventional rice farming to organic rice farming, 80% of them will go back to conventional within 2 years, because they don't have a market to sell their organic rice. So one thing. So what we can learn from that is also, how do we scale this? Is understanding there are a lot of there's a lot of sort of educational projects for farmers out there that people can support. But I think a really key element is helping farmers get access to market. So how can people help is, if you want to start a business, if you want to help regenerative farming grow, well, yeah, start a business in sourcing regeneratively farmed food and find customers for farmers. It's the most difficult part for most farmers, at least the ones that we have been in touch with here in Bali. I can imagine it's kind of a worldwide thing where, most farmers want to make the transition. They know that they're contributing to a dying model, but it is just about market access. So anything that you can do to help fluidify that market access and contribute to creating a market for those products will, I think, quite mechanically scale things in that direction, because once again, farmers are quick to pick up and jump on these opportunities. That's the first part.
That's an awesome point. Thanks, Tanguy. I really, really appreciate it. What came into my mind when you were talking about helping farmers to sell is that for every business, the most important part of the business is, of course, creating a service or a product. But the second most important is selling it, right? And normally when we build businesses or in regular traditional organizations, we have a sales representative, we have a sales team that goes out into the market and forges that market and makes that sale happen. And farmers, I believe, normally don't have that, right? So that's a very, very interesting point for us to think about how we can potentially support small scale farmers within our own communities and pushing their sales forward. So thank you. Really appreciate that. Tobias, back to you. The $1,000,000 question. How do we scale this? And then I'm going to pass on the microphone for whoever would like to ask other questions as well.
I mean, I think one of the last slides is thinking that somebody else will do it. You know, so it's on the food waste side, absolutely. I think at any point in that chain of production, through to processing, through to serving, and through to consumption, and if anybody in any of those links of the chain think that somebody else is going to fix it down the road, then the chain breaks. So getting that understanding to people, I think, also really pushing out the understanding. Everybody's focused on plastics. We know that that's not the majority of our waste. Getting the amount of money, support, and press around organic waste and the detrimental effects of that, and the scale of that damage that is occurring on a daily basis, I think is really meaningful to people. I still have conversations with people, and they have zero idea how harmful organic waste is. So it's getting the information to more people and letting them understand that. Most of us here know to deal with our waste more responsibly, and do. I would suggest on the whole. So it's to continue doing that, and once again, decentralize.
Thank you. This brings me back to the point that it's so important for all of us here to take this conversation forward, right? Not let it die here, but talk to your friends, talk to your families, create your meetups, and bring this kind of discussion forward. The more people know about it, the more action we will have being taken. So I have someone there in the back. Thank you, Jen. Please, the next one also already start preparing the line up.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for both the presentation. It's amazing. So I have a few questions. Okay. First, Tanguy, I saw in your presentation on one part it was technology and big scale, and on the other side, small scale, but without technology. So I wanted to have your opinion on this, where technologies have a positive impact or only a negative impact. Also on the challenges of tomorrow. So I agree. First of all, I'm the founder of Trilogy Regenerative Moringa, so I believe in regenerativeness. But for the future, it's amazing to go back and to add up the knowledge of today, but how do we solve the problem that they had in the past? In the past, you had issues with famine, which is hunger, I believe, and some other issues. So if we go back to before with new technologies, not technologies, sorry, knowledge, how do we solve the problem from before? And the last point was, you said regenerative, Bali, the first island. Why not Indonesia, the first country? Yeah. And a last question on the machine, which looks amazing, and I'm very interested also from this point. I'm not an expert into it. I'm just trying to do the best on my field with the knowledge that I have. But isn't it the time that it takes to decompose, develop all the bacteria in it, and how does that affect within only 24 hours the bacteria inside? Thank you.
You might want to keep the mic to repeat some of those questions. I got so the first one on technology at small scale. So the reason why technology is used at large scale is because large scale usually has the money to buy technology, right? So there's a lot of examples of technology at small scale which are great. The challenge of that is affordability. Is how can you provide that technology to many smallholders? That's kind of always the question. You can sort of maybe share resources. Maybe you have a number of farmers, because I mean farmers produce a lot of food waste as well, who can as a cooperative maybe buy a machine like the one that Shiva Industries produces. What I mean is the question becomes accessibility of that technology. Most of the time you see technology again, like DNA sequencing of plants, like robots picking strawberries, stuff like that. It's very niche. There's only a very few amount of countries who can afford that, and for whom it's actually even relevant. So I think that the first sort of broad answer, without because we could talk about this for a while, is in a lot of cases technology can help at a small scale, but it's is it even available for the people who need it? And in most cases it's very difficult to make that technology available. And I'm sorry, your second question.
Other question was about the issues that they had in the past. If we could go back with implementing new knowledge, but how do we solve for the future of food issues that they had in the past, knowing that there's going to be more and more climate changing and so on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Tobias mentioned this, is the biggest challenge now is unpredictable weather. So in the past, let's say if we look at rice cultivation, I'll speak about this because it's what we know the best, is weather patterns have been extremely regular over the last 100 years in Bali at least, where cycles were very sort of clearly determined throughout the year. Now with changing weather patterns, it is about sort of what I mean by bringing back traditional methods of cultivation is the sort of the method. So, for example, the way that we farm rice with the farmers who work with us is that we rebuild the ecosystems around a rice paddy. So, let's say like plants around a rice field that will draw in pollinators who are actually predators for most of the pests for the rice field, including ducks during the rice cycle who do pest management, nutrient cycling, provide fertility and additional revenue for the farmers by selling the ducks. What I mean is that these things sort of don't really change. It's relevant into the future. However, there are some things like, for example, the type of rice that is grown, the seed that we use is it's a non-hybrid, non-GMO seed, but there's a variety of seeds that you can choose from, right? And this one is specifically chosen because it is very hardy towards strong rain and strong wind. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there are some tweaks that we need to make, even though we're implementing the overall method, but tweaks to be made to move into the future with the new challenges such as climate change.
And I want to jump into that a little bit, because in one of the previous times that Tanguy and I talked about the subject, I asked him, okay, so now what do we do, right? With all this knowledge and then prepare for unpredictable weather patterns and food getting more expensive in the future that he's basically predicting in his talk. And he said, start growing your own food. Start learning how to grow your own food. And
which you did.
Which I did, yes. So I think this was the number one most amazing piece of advice I got in a long time. And getting my daughter, who's 6 years old, involved in that, and my wife who's here, I think this is really something that will enable not just us as a family to eat more healthily, but to be more interested in food and to help the future generations, as you had in your slide, to learn about that process, which is sort of forgotten, right? We like to, or many kids like to be on their phones and play games and this and that, but cultivating and producing food is an incredible skill that is here, and we should all learn and praise that. So thanks for bringing that up. So that's my opinion on how we would, prepare for famines. Imagine all of you guys here growing your own food and teaching kids and teaching other people on how to grow your own food. For me, I see this as a 10, 20, 30-year process in my family where we're just starting to practice, just starting to learn, but it starts with the first step. That's what I think. Cool. So let's move over to some questions, and I would love to have a question for Shiva Industries as well.
Yeah.
Yes. So, okay. Sorry. And then.
So mate, the question was, doesn't it damage the microbes? Okay. Good question. Question I had to ask too when I got into this. So the microbes that we use are specifically called thermophilic thermophobes, and they are commonly found at sea level volcanic areas, and they can tolerate really high temperatures. They actually thrive from 40 degrees. That's when they kind of wake up upwards. So they are custom built for the machine. When we put a machine into customer's location, we start the machine. We'll do a start process with the microbes to make sure that they are activated and they're working efficiently. And then the machine is never emptied 100%. So the 20%, let's say, that stays in the machine is the original and or the the supersized versions of the microbial community. And then the 80% is removed as organic fertilizer. Then all you need to do is apply some food, some heat, and some oxygen. Bang, the process starts again.
Is it? Yeah, it's on. Hi, my name is Amit. Hi, here. Can you see me? Yeah. I'm a green school parent, and I've got a question for you, Tobias. So it's when you talk about the success, and I'm always very practical thinking, it's like, how do you foresee to get closer to consumers? I missed the first part of your machine, but what I heard when I came in was like, wow, this is a wonder machine. Can I have it? Or what is my quickest road to this machine? And I'm thinking of hotels, like how does it look, or what does it look like, the quickest road to this machine?
Yeah, really, really good question. And we've decided to focus on the private sector. So our smallest machine handles 300 kilos of wet waste per day. And we're all talking with clients at the moment of doing 50-ton machines per day. And so the standard range that we're generally dealing and talking with customers about is between 300 kilos to 5,000 kilos per day. And so as far as going below that and going to the consumer side of things, we're not there yet. And I think we have huge, rightly so, F&B, hospitality, retail, malls, and education, corporates, government, and the agriculture sector. We have these huge contributors to food waste, which is where we've decided to focus. These machines and aerobic digestion, we didn't come up with it, we didn't invent it. It exists globally, and there are competitors globally, not in Indonesia, but close. Singapore, there's a company that has a small-scale aerobic digester that you can put in a house. It's just really water intensive. We can't work it out. We tried to get some of their microbes to do some testing, and didn't get them, sadly. But it uses a lot of water, and that's obviously a major issue here in Bali. So how do you get to one? And the shortest route to market is to speak to any of those three key markets about aerobic digestion and send them our way.
So just for my idea, like this current machine that you have, how much space does it need? Like in a room like this, would it take up a fourth, a half?
The 300 kilo machine weighs about 600 kilos. And it is 1.2 meters by 1.7 meters by 1.4 meters.
So where you're sitting now?
Pretty much, yeah, this rectangular part here. So that was the machine in the video, albeit very quick. But yes, it's not a big machine. It has a mild vinegary smell, but nothing unpleasant. That's just the microbes working. Really it can be, and it's really quiet because it's an electric motor. It's 50% more efficient than the leading competitors' products. So it could be solar charged, hydroelectric, or you could use the electric motor with PLN. Or if you're in a really remote area and you need to use something like diesel, you could do that.
All right, thank you. Look, I love what you guys are doing, so thank you. Great presentation, very informative. My name is Tobias. I'm from the Asia Venture Fund. We are a climate and sustainability fund, and I'm now based in Bali. One of the things I'm struggling with is the fact that we're reaching 10 billion people across the planet. And I understand it's probably 75% urbanization by, say, 50 or so. And the fact that more and more people are eating meat. So the concept of regenerative small-scale farming is a hard concept to grasp, especially if you live in Singapore or whatever it is. How can you grow your own food? I mean, I'm from Australia, so yeah, we got land, but unfortunately we have land practices that actually don't suit the the land itself. As a farmer, you'd know. I think Australia has about like 50 millimeters of topsoil, whereas in Europe it's probably half a meter. But I'm struggling with that concept of regenerative and small scale when we're going to be starving in the future. So how can we address that? And you've sort of moved away a little bit from technology. And for me, I think technology will solve the problem. It just has to be used in the right way. So what's your view on that in terms of the future of food?
Food is usually your one, but I was going to say something earlier on the tech front. I think technology that mimics anything biomimicry, I'm a big fan of, and so I think with our machines, it's composting. It's what it is. Just in a hyper optimal environment, perfect amount of heat, the perfect amount of microbes, the perfect amount of oxygen, perfect rotations, etc. Perfect mix of 99% aerobic and 1% anaerobic to get to that. So it's biomimicry, where that's what would happen in nature, but it would take 20 years if it was left unchecked. So on the protein front, it's not really my field to talk to and talk about. So I mean, yeah, I think meat is going to become incredibly expensive, similar to fuel, because we just won't have the ecosystem to be able to grow it cost effectively.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine like India? It's like 1.2 billion people all eating meat, and China's another billion people, which is where the trend's going. It's just this. It just can't support all that.
Just eat bugs, mate.
Well, I'm a vegan, so I don't eat protein, but to my friends actually. So I've got. How do you know when you meet a vegan?
I'll tell you.
I'll tell you first 30 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, you took about 2 minutes, so thank you for the restraint.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm a big believer of technology, but technology's got to be used in the right way. Can this be sort of applied to say high rises in say Singapore or something like that?
Yeah, 100%.
Right. That is interesting.
I want to say a little bit about technology. I come from technology myself as well. I spent quite some time working for a large technology corporation. And I have always thought the technology is never the solution. Technology is really the enabler of the solutions, right? And some solutions may not require technology. So I think it's very important for us to always think about, yes, whether do we need technology to speed up a process that would happen naturally? Do we need technology to make things more efficiently, but not applying technology just for the sake of it, right? I think we need to look at the problem, try to understand what the problem really is, dig very deep down, and then think about potential solutions and whether technology can be an enabler for speeding that up. Cool. We have one in the back waiting a little bit. Yeah, he's been waiting for a while.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you guys for your beautiful work. Yeah, I'm really excited about it too. So, and we have the bad news. We have a lot of problems. Yeah. But the good news, it looked like a task. Yeah, and we can do something step by step. And so the idea is maybe we can do some education program for kids, for school, for local school too. Maybe you can share something, some information about like compost system, waste management also, and maybe it will be good to collaborate each other. Also, I talked with Elena about it, and yeah, Zero Garden. So I think it's a good idea to educate like people from childhood, yeah, and work with the school. And also maybe, yeah, I'm introduce a little bit few words for already Tobias and Rob. Maybe we can do some, and also we work with Bianca of these things. So maybe we can do some sustainable guide for property. Yeah, it looks like puzzle, yeah. So you have a resort or you have a property and you can implement step by step some system for waste management, water waste management, whatever, yeah, some solar panel maybe, why not? And so maybe we can collaborate about it. And the question is, what you think about it, about the education program for children? What you think first step for implementing in school? And also second one, Tobias, you told me that you have some funny research about the flies. So if you put the compost, organic compost, the flies, it's gone, yeah? So maybe it's...
The what is gone, sorry?
Flies.
Flies, yes, sorry.
Yeah. Maybe you can share a little bit, because, so this is all.
Yeah, maybe the first part. Well, at Aston Karaway, very much like a Jiwa garden, see Lenny in the back there. We have many groups of kids who come out to experience being out on a farm for a half day or for a day. And this is, I mean, every week. Actually, last year, we counted it was about 1,400 kids who came out throughout the year. You know, we have kids who come from Jakarta who have like never seen a chicken, for example, in their life. Some kids, I mean, even who have never seen a chili plant in their life. I mean, so you know, we have on one of our boards, we have a stat in the US. A study came out like 2 years ago that 14% of kids below 5 years old think that bacon grows on a plant. So there's a lot of work to do on very basic education, but also, I mean, yeah, reconnecting with nature. Once again, we have a lot of kids, you know, who come out and they're wearing shoes and they're in the paddies like, oh, my shoes are gonna get dirty, and so first, you know, they take off the shoes and it's like a bit muddy, and you know, usually a few hours later they're walking in the mud. Sometimes they're even playing, and sometimes it rains and it just becomes like a mud party, and that's an amazing outcome. So there's a more and more kind of like a psychological disconnection from nature, which, I mean, we're talking about here, but it is really real when we have these groups of kids, and you know, they come from all around the world to experience a day out with us, and we feel that this is very important work. So you know, we do a lot of outreach to schools here in Bali. Green School, of course, is one of our large partners. We do Green Camp with them throughout the year, and have kids from all over the world who come to see, you know, how do you propagate a plant? How do you grow a seedling? How, you know, what is compost? How do you make it? Why is it interesting? Just all these things. So we try to bring as much exposure to nature and the source of food to kids. If you're able to provide more of that, it's I mean, the more you can, the better. You know, there's a famous kind of quote that was slightly viral, I think, on Instagram recently. It's from David Attenborough. You know, he was saying, if kids are not exposed to nature, they cannot understand it, and so they cannot protect it. Yeah, they're, as usual, David.
On the bug front, Gregor, yeah, look, I think healthy ecosystems, it's very much like your own body. You know, the healthier and the closer you are to homeostasis, the less bugs that can get in, the less weeds that can grow or diseases, etc. I'm sort of flipping between the two now, but soil health is incredibly important. Water table health is incredibly important. Atmospheric and environmental health is incredibly important. There's been plenty of studies, and we're currently midstream with Udiana, with our own digestate and organic fertilizer, but on the soil restorative properties of that. So I think there's Tanguy and I have talked a little while back about creating one for the heirloom or indigenous rice that these guys are growing. So what is that exact in NPK or mineral content that they need? Calcium, magnesium, sulfur, potassium, nitrogen, etc. That we can pull out of the machine, mostly done, actually. But we might need to augment it specifically. So the healthier the soil is, the healthier the plants will be and the ecosystem will be, and the less room there is for weeds and or pests to enter that ecosystem.
Hi guys, thank you so much. Always so inspiring to listen to this event. I have a question. Well, one is more of a them and they're there actually available. And the vision was like these plants that before produced weapons and now produce, they had to find a room for that and now produce chemicals, pesticides with this fossil impact. That soon it will be over. No, the fuel, the fossil fuel will be over. To protect them, they will need to do something else with those factories. So this information of how to produce mass scale natural fertilizers and organic pesticides could be interesting. And this is just a vision on, we were saying about how technology can work, because maybe they already have mass scale that can produce without the fossil fuels. And maybe even I saw when we were producing the fertilizers that it takes a while for them to be ready, right? So maybe have a machine that also fast forwards the process of the fertilizers being available in a scale. Yeah. So this is not actually a question, it's just a comment.
I was trying to work it out.
And Tobias, about your machine, I'm not sure I really understood, or if I didn't listen. How long does the process take? Faster than the normal one?
24 hours.
24 hours. You have, and about as using just one microbe type, the quality of the soil is good, the same, or different than the other that has all the bacteria and all the things?
That's a really good question, actually. And it's something that took the lab quite a long time to land on. So we have assembled a cohort of microbes, of thermophilic thermophobes, from different regions in Bali, and got them to play well together effectively. So 24 hours is quick. I think we look at Climates and Volker and those guys, and we've had tons of conversations around different types of waste. And if 24 hours is our worst case scenario, and that is for bones, really cellulose, fibrous stuff, oyster shells, things like that, okay, to come through the machine. And but it can be even faster for banana peels and standard sort of fruit waste, high fructose waste, all that sort of test. So 24 hours is the worst case. How does it differ from more natural roving type microbes? It's just not optimal, because some of them they need time to warm up, they need time to get going, and we find that when we have a power outage, which happens a lot, we lose so much time. So our digestion arc When that machine is full, we track it from a weight perspective to down to where we need it to from a moisture perspective, that we know it's complete, the fertilizer. But if that machine gets switched off, we have a power outage or whatever, it takes ages. It really lengthens that, broadens that digestion curve, and then to start it back up again takes ages as well. So that happens in nature, but on much longer, larger scales. So if you have huge rain that comes in, or you have landslides, or you have lots of dry heat, you have people digging, or, birds migrating, anything that can happen to change ecosystems and all of the millions of beautiful ways that our world changes, that those have a fundamental impact on the soil and how it behaves and the microbial content of that soil.
Thank you. Well, thank you for your presentations today. So Aston Caraway has Gotong Royale once a week, which beautiful, gets the community involved on a very regular basis. Tobias, do you plan to, do you have now, or do you have plans to in the future have any type of Gotong Royale at Shiba Industries for the local community to get involved on a regular basis?
Yeah, we're a little bit different because, our factory isn't that exciting, and I know there's a few people who's been to it in the room. It's a lot of welding and all that sort of jazz. We're currently working on black soldier fly larvae, no-tech tubs for remote communities to help them deal with their own, and that's part of our CSR activities, but also starting to look at collections into some specific villages who have major issues, where we would return the fertilizer to them. But we're still really early stages. So, that is, I'm not going to say we're doing it all and we're killing it right now. It's certainly medium term. But Doug, who's sitting not far behind you, has just been working really hard on bringing that together and bringing all the data on that together. So it's something that we want to actively engage as soon as we can. But we're sort of getting through that, the blast force of the first sort of 12 months as a manufacturer at the moment.
Gentlemen, I have the pleasure of knowing both these guys really well and work closely with both of them. The question is around action. So I just want to provide some background, some anecdotal background. I'm in the Pereira community group, which is 500 plus people. I paid for a couple of posts previously for Urban Compost, Bula, who is being a presenter here. And I paid for those, and out of 500 plus individuals and businesses, he had one response. Bula, who those who don't know, picks up urban waste, and it costs virtually nothing, less than a cup of coffee a month. So the question is for you guys, or maybe even for the group, is that why I'm so passionate about organic waste, for is exactly what Tobias talked about. Was last year I was part of an ecosystem group. Most of the focus of that conversation is about plastic, and I'm not negating it's not important. I'm just saying, if we're talking ROI, if we're just talking impact, like the single thing that you could do to make the most impact is the conversation that we're having now, both from the food perspective and from the waste perspective. So I'd love to open that up to you guys, or if anyone else has, how do we get the message out that 65+% of the waste, which we can control some, part, all, depending on our circumstances, how do we manage that?
Just hand out heaps of caps and stickers and stuff, I think. That's my current plan. Yeah, I don't know.
Billboard on Sunset Road. Who knows people? Who knows people that have really big access to messaging and
more billboards.
And then no digital. And then taking that up to the government levels. Who has access to people at those that can make these decisions, that can then roll these programs out? I mean, is there people in this room that can help with that sort of access? Yeah. Or the gentleman that has access to funds here. Hey, how about How about using that as a model? How about, supporting Tobias and others in that, what, 1,000,000 kilos a year? Like,
what's wrong? 1,000,000 tons.
Yeah, tons, sorry. 1,000,000 tons, yeah. How? Let's work on the how.
So urban compost. So I own an organic waste processing company, but we still use urban compost. So it is a fantastic product. It's super easy. It's good for our kids to see. And it's good, the guys come in and collect it, swap the buckets out, etc. And it's we use Eco Bali as well to separate all of them. So which is weird because I could just take that bucket to the factory and deal with it. But Tobias doing a great job. My mates are doing a great job. Rima Compost, etc. There's a lot of great businesses in the ecosystem that we want to support. So we're not trying to replace those people. And I think to your point around making it tangible, whatever, I think in the private sector, you're seeing garbage collection costs go through the roof. And as transportation costs increase and carbon pressures increase, you're going to see that price skyrocket. So private businesses that are landfilling at the moment are paying about 8 times what they were paying 3 years ago in Bali. That's a pretty steep trajectory. So where do you think the next 5 to 10 years is going to go from a collections perspective? At a public perspective, France obviously has just mandated organic food separation. South Korea is probably the shining light from that perspective. They manage 98% of their food waste, which is phenomenal. They are incredible and have been doing so for a long time. New York City is doing a trial at the moment. And I know at the Indonesian government level, they are talking about making organic food waste separation and handling mandatory. So it will come eventually.
Are you aware of, and maybe one that's for the group, is there an association or a collaboration or a connection of organic waste management people and companies in, let's start with Bali, for example? Has there ever been all the stakeholders actually sitting in the room just to have a conversation to see if there's some synergies? I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about impact. I mean, how can we do that? Can I help you? Can you help me? I've got this, with one transport system, as we know, because as Tanguy says, we're burning petrol, to do all this. Like, is there some collaborative aspect in that way? I mean, has there ever been a discussion, or is that a ideation, or is it bullshit, or is it real, or what is it?
I think it's awesome, but Volker might be able to answer better than me.
Yeah, I can see you looking at it.
I can see the Paul coming out.
It's the problems are not as simple as just there's 1,000,000 tons of food waste. We got a request from Padma in Legian Street. They produce 7 tons of food waste every day, clogged with traffic. That's just one hotel, yeah? So it means they have totally different problems than Green School, having a surrounding where they can outlet the compost, for example. Yeah? So you need to think individually about the logistics. So for them, probably some machines or a large machine of Tobias's caliber may be helpful to reduce the volume. And then still they would have to transport the final product somewhere where it can be used. So logistics is not just as simple as that, okay? So for us, so that's why I say the government is trying and not trying. I think they use a lot of alibi, TPS, TKR, where everybody thinks there's composting going on. Ruma compost is totally maxed out. 50% of the organic waste from Padang Tegal still goes to the landfill because they don't have the capacity. So now talking about capacity, we talk about land prices. Land prices in Ubud are exorbitant high, so we cannot really create a composting site. So we have to transport the garbage somewhere. And again, transportation is not the worst enemy of it. There are numbers you can calculate. Like in the US, I think they think 50 kilometers transporting organic waste is still within a reach. So you really have to look at the numbers, the amount of waste. And again, big machines are much more economically efficient than small machines. In Indonesia, we have cheap labor costs, which if I have to balance between a machine from Tobias or what my guys make, it's a cost thing. In the moment where the prices are high for a machine, I have to charge more pickup fee for the people who will pick up the garbage, right? So there are a lot of complex issues that need to be addressed locally. Plus, we have to address this huge amount of waste. And then we need an outlet for the waste. I think what many people also don't understand is you can also over-fertilize with organic compost. You know, organic fertilizer is as harmful as chemical fertilizer. The big advantage of chemical fertilizer is that you can precisely use the amount that you need for a particular plant, which doesn't happen in smallholder farming because farmers unfortunately still believe the more fertilizer you use, the better, which is wrong. But in palm oil industry, they use by the gram of chemical fertilizer because it's an expense for them. So now if we over-fertilize with organic fertilizer, it's also harmful. So there's a lot of complex issues that want to be addressed first. But I still agree to you, we should sit together and work on a solution.
I just want to make an additional comment. It is fantastic that we have entrepreneurs trying to solve some of the issues that are pressing at hand. The governments are a big role or have a big role to play in all of this, right? And I think groups like us, the discussions that we're having here and bringing these discussions to governments is extremely important. I don't mean to put anyone on the spotlight, but Renato, you have a little bit of experience discussing with governments on different policies and projects and etc. I know a little bit about your story. We haven't met particularly yet, but I would love to hear your 10 cents on what you would recommend for people like us or entrepreneurs that are working hard to regenerate and to have very important products and services out there where governments could play a very impactful, positive role into making those businesses flourish. And if you can share a little bit of your experiences, that would be fantastic.
Well, thanks a lot, Renato, for having me here. I was a green school parent too, by the way, in 2019, 2020, COVID times. And build up the company South Pole, which is a global private company, and is work at the intersection of entrepreneurship, governments, and NGOs to try to scale these kind of ideas. Now, just one comment related to this conversation: why hasn't the waste topic really scaled? For things to scale very simply, I think you mentioned that you need a business case, and it has just been stubbornly difficult in any section of the waste discussion to create business cases. Why is there so much plastic? It is simply not an interesting business case to use to recycle plastic compared to pristine plastic. It is simply not a business case to use composting compared to synthetic fertilizer. And why is that? It's because the legacy systems are extremely efficient. The value chain of plastic, virgin plastic, it's a massive industry. Just look at on YouTube in what scale these guys are producing, how sophisticated it all is. So we're struggling. You mentioned decentralize. That's fantastic, but we're struggling. We're bumping up against the scaling topic. So there's of course, no reason to despair, right? So what can we do to counter that? First of all, I think you mentioned governments. Since it's not a business case, governments have to play a role. One way or the other, it has to come through legislation or through incentive schemes. And I think one aspect, one topic we could all do here, since we have so much experience from so many diverse countries, is to think carefully, how is actually waste managed in your home country? How have other governments been able to solve it out? For example, one topic is the different levels of government. It's in Bali, it's unclear. Is the Kabupaten in charge? Is the province in charge? Or is the national governments? And that there's so many lessons that can be learned from other places, how governments have actually engineered and solved the issue. That could be just like not teaching, not preaching, but just open sessions with information sharing. So that would potentially go a long way. And then on the entrepreneurship topic, scale is everything. So the simpler you can define the systems, the simpler you can define the logistics. Maybe just start with one element. Perhaps just start targeting one type of farmers who happens to farm coconuts. Just one value chain, not everything at the same time, but try to create scale in one section, carve out the business case, and then grow waters. That would make sense. And perhaps last point, which is of course one I have to mention, one element South was always trying to work with credits. we pioneered carbon credits, but we also have plastic credits, biodiversity credits are coming up. Well, what is a credit actually? A credit is a subsidy. A credit is a subsidy to pay for the environmental impact you create. So if we could, perhaps even here in Bali, create systems where, let's say, I'm just making it up now, but restaurants would basically charge extra $1 a meal, which would be a credit for subsidizing regenerative agriculture. You would create that, you would create a marketplace that could change, could move the needle. So we should experiment also as entrepreneurs with such schemes that just move the needle on the profitability of those solutions. So that's just a few things that come to mind. But all in all, I'm super excited, of course, to be here in Bali and listen to your stories. This is the inspiration we need right now in a little bit depressed world. That depression doesn't bring us anywhere. We have to listen to you guys and to all of you on what is cooking, what is growing, what is scaling. That brings the good spirits to life again. Thank you.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
I think you mentioned gate fees, and you said eight times. I think when it gets to about 20 times, I think that's where innovation will come and lots of entrepreneurs and the business case will make sense. A lot of the times, a lot of these waste energy projects don't make sense because they just don't make sense.
Yeah.
But I noticed in Australia, it went from $25 a tonne to $120 a tonne, right? It's a landfill. And now innovation is occurring in Australia. So I think the higher we can get the gate fees, the more innovation and more entrepreneurs will find solutions for this, and the business cases and the scale that's required as well.
We have one more question, and then one more.
Ross Jackson, Swiss Contact Indonesia. This is my first Scale Climate Action event. It's been terrific and great presentations, and I think the contributions from the audience have really rounded out, answered a lot of the questions I had. Except that I've been working a lot on, over the past decades, on farmer engagement around sustainability in Indonesia. And the challenge that we see that really Tanguy is dealing with, I think is really interesting, is that farmers have been brought up in the system, traditional system, and they've been traumatized by this previous efforts to link into new organic markets. Your method, how are you dealing with that trauma? How do you get farmers convinced? Is it only around the price? And also you talked about additional systems or services to support that. And I think that this conversation, and that links to this, how do you, what other services to provide there? And one more for Tobias. 1 million tons of organic fertilizer would be fantastic. What are you talking, when you talk to the companies you're trying to sell your machine to or service, what are you talking, that discussion, what happens to the fertilizer? What's that discussion?
Thank you. Okay, so first point about trauma. How do we reach out to farmers? When we started out, we had a goal to sort of transition the entire Subak, so the entire farming cooperative, where we have our headquarters, which is just 5 minutes away from here. It's about 220 farmers over 86 hectares. And so that was our goal, was to create the first fully transitioned Subak in Bali to regenerative rice farming. And we quickly realized that about 40% of the farmers actually don't own the land. So they don't really have an incentive. They're just renting sometimes, 1 cycle or 2 cycles ahead. So they don't really have an incentive to make the transition. And about 10 to 20% of them are starting to get really old. So like 62, 63, like they're almost retiring. So we realized that actually our, let's say, addressable population of farmers is only around about maybe 40% of the farmers in that area. So we started talking with other farmers in neighboring areas. So our goal is to help this entire watershed, so the Ayung River watershed, to transition to natural, to regenerative rice farming. And we decided, instead of having to try and, let's say, and sell this to farmers, we reach out to new communities. We start by reaching out to the head farmer, present to him this method of rice farming. We bring in farmers that we've worked with previously, so it's actually not really us who are presenting it, but rather farmers who are doing like a peer-to-peer sharing session. And we work with farmers who want to do this. This is what we've learned, is we don't have the time and energy to sell this to farmers, to preach. It's just, so yeah, basically go to a new area that would have maybe 150, 200 farmers, organize a meeting so that there had 15 farmers, which is a great, first group to start with. And they start with demo plots, so that runs for one cycle, and then it just snowballs. So that's, this is our way of outreach and of accompanying farmers. So and then you say that, what other way of supporting do we provide? We just finished a round of fundraising with a fund because we actually had an increasing need of working capital, because one thing that we provide farmers, which is very key, is that we pre-buy their first cycle yield at a guaranteed price. So we de-risk completely the transition for them. So, those 15 farmers would raise their hand and we say, okay, so what is the surface of rice paddy that you would like to try this on? And what would you usually get as a yield on that rice paddy? We also have data that we've been collecting for years now, so we know what is the average yield of a rice paddy, and we will give that money upfront right at the beginning of that cycle to the farmer. And if they yield less than that, that's for us. It's our loss. They don't need to pay for it. And if they yield more, then we'll pay the difference. So it's kind of a no-brainer for the farmer. There's no way he or she can lose, and that we've found is a very important step in bringing farmers on board, because usually farmers are the most risk-averse sort of people you can talk to. They don't have savings, or they don't have usually the finances to be able to take a risk. And natural farming, regenerative farming, whatever you want to call it, has a bad reputation, and people usually think that they will have a drop in yield when they start using chemicals. And our data has shown that actually from the first cycle on, you get an increase in yield, about a 60% increase in revenue just from the first cycle, and then from the second cycle it goes up and up and up. So this is what we're implementing. And the way that this is funded, by the way, is that we sell this rice to hotels and restaurants. So we are a distributor of rice. So, and the revenue from that goes back to providing these prepayments and providing training to these farmers and reaching out. This is, I think, an important part as well, is actually creating businesses. I mean, this is creating businesses which are regenerative and not, there's a lot of other organizations who provide training to farmers, as we discussed in Indonesia, the 80% who go back to conventional. We're really wanting to just to create an organization that has this regenerative cycle built into its business model.
Ours is pretty much the same. We really focus on businesses that get it and have taken at least the first few steps towards separation, and really understanding their organic food waste, or their waste in general, to be honest. We're not going to try and convince somebody who's like, no, it's fine, I just pay the banjo or whatever, and it just off it goes. It's not my problem. We don't spend time at the moment with those people. We're too busy working on the private sector that's already doing the right thing and just needs a way to do it better. As for the 1 million tons, but with our machine, we have about an 80% on average reduction, 80% reduction. So that's about 200,000 tons of organic fertilizer that we would be able to release into the market. And we have 3 models: buy, lease, and collection. So if a customer buys a machine from us outright, they are in control of the digestate. If they have an overage, then we have off-takers in the US and Europe. So we will buy it back off them at a subsidized rate, augmented in our factory and standardized export. For the leasing model, sometimes it's a 50-50. Sometimes they want the digestate. There was an example before about a smaller restaurant or a smaller space. They don't have the landscape. They don't have the need for the digestate. So then they would sell it back to us. And so there's a revenue generation side on that as well. For collections, you pay us to pick it up, we process it, we own it.
Okay. We have one more question here. We're really short in time. We can do this afterwards during the networking section. Yeah. Let's just have one more question here, and then you can come straight up to us. Sorry.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for the talk. When we've been talking about waste, are you talking about the waste of the end products, or are you talking about the waste of the whole life cycle of growing, production, consumable items? And then hopping, this one's probably more for you, Tobias. I know Urban Compost, as you mentioned, I know they do a mix of actual end consumer food waste, and they mix it with regular organic waste and for their composting. Does your machine actually compost the regular stuff, or is it just all for end food waste?
Anything organic. The first question. Sorry, can you repeat the first question?
Yeah, so we're talking about waste.
Yeah, sorry, yes, okay.
Waste. So are we looking at the actual end food waste, or we're looking at the waste of the whole?
The industry categorizes it two ways: pre-plate food loss, post-plate food waste. But when we're talking about organic waste, we are talking about the whole. But yeah, food loss is anywhere from screwing up putting the seeds in to anything that happens along the way, wild weather events or drunk tractor drivers or whatever it is, through to hitting the plate. It's an interesting stat. I mean, this is an F&B stat, but 20% of waste that lands at a restaurant doesn't ever make it to the plate. So there's a 20% food loss from getting to the restaurant to getting to the plate, which happens. So it's people miscalculate expiration dates. The produce comes in a bit contaminated. It gets contaminated on site. The apprentice drops a rendang. It happens. But yes, so food loss, food waste.
All right, guys, I can't thank you both enough for all the time and effort you've spent to share your knowledge and experiences with us. Can't thank enough for everyone showing up this morning for this very, very important discussion, for the questions. We had many questions I really, really appreciate, and apologies for not letting you go back at it, but please do come back to us. Thank you, Renato. Thank you, everyone who has contributed with other questions and comments. And thanks, Carol, and the team at the Bridge, the Green School, for hosting us once again and supporting us. Such an important conversation. Please take this conversation as your inspiration to continue this discussion with other people in your circles, with your families, with your friends, and slowly push towards a much better and greener future for us all. So, oh yeah, I forgot. Let's do first a round of applause for our speaker. Really appreciate it. I know it's not a small thing to be talking to us. And then I want to hand over the mic to Tanguy, who wants to give a last message. And then I want to ask everybody to do something that we have never, ever done in the history of Scale Climate Action, which is to take a group photo at the end. Yeah, so if you can afterwards, after Tanguy, to stick around here, we take a group photo. It will be an interesting one. We've never done that. So thank you.
Just a really quick one. Next week is Earth Day, as you all know. So you were mentioning that every week on Wednesdays we organize Gotong Royong. So I just wanted to maybe echo that. So every Wednesday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. We invite anyone to join us out in the rice paddies. So it's really just 5 minutes away from here. You can check us out. We're in the back. You can come. You can see us on Instagram, website, whatever. If you're interested in doing that, it's free, of course. Just come yourselves, your family, and spend the afternoon with us on whatever we're doing that day. Sometimes we're working with the rice farmers. Sometimes we're planting or harvesting stuff. It's always good fun, that's for sure. So please, join us if you want. Wednesday afternoons from 4 to 6. And next week on Earth Day, we have a farm tour in the morning if you guys would like to join that. And in the afternoon, we're doing actually a trash pickup in the subak with the farmers. And in the afternoon, just chill, enjoy, have a bit of a drink all together. So yeah, you're invited to join us if you want to see what we're up to. We have a community garden. There's a lot of stuff going on over there, and it's very close to here. So if you'd like to, you're invited for next week.